Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Tengai, Psikyo's follow-up to Samurai Aces. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. So Tengai, or Sengoku Blade as it was known in Japan, came out 3 years after Samurai Aces in 1996. It originally released in the arcade and then got a port to the Saturn in Japan, which is still rather highly regarded and very, very much a collector's item. But one thing about Tengai, compared to Samurai Aces, it's a radical departure. So as you might even be able to tell from the screen aspect here, it's not a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. They changed the mechanics to a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. We still have our same difficulty select that Zerodiv gave us for the previous entry, Sengoku Aces, so we have all the way from 1, which is monkey, up to 7, very hard. Today we'll be looking at the game on easy. When we select the game, we're taken into our character select screen. There are 5 characters available here and 1 hidden character for a total of 6. So let's take a quick moment to go over the 6 characters before we jump into the game. First, we have Miko. She's one of the returning characters from Samurai Aces. So another thing that's really different about Sengoku Blade versus Sengoku Aces is, so it was a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, it's now a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up, and instead of flying in planes, the characters are just themselves flying. A little bit weird, but we'll run with it. So each character has a base shot, and then as you collect the familiar power-ups that are present in Psikyo games, although they do have a different look this time, which is good. They look like scrolls versus the bullets and bombs that they did before. You'll first gain a familiar, and then your familiar will continue to power up the more power-ups you get. So Miko's familiar is this spirit who fires homing shots, and when you charge up your familiar, he'll go and fire these slow-moving bullets which will deal damage over time. Then Miko's bomb is this incantation scroll which will flash on the screen with all these incantation kanji going past. Our next character is Tengai, another returning character from Samurai Aces. Tengai's familiar is his bird or hawk, who goes and fires these 4 feathers which will focus in on a point further ahead on the screen. Once you charge up his bird, he'll become this piercing phoenix, just burning through all the enemies, although really he doesn't deal as much damage as you would think he would deal. And then Tengai's bomb is this shout of these Buddhist chants at the enemies. Our third character is Sho. His familiar is a set of mirrors, up to, well, all of them you can get up to level 4. The mirrors will fire short bursts of energy under normal circumstances, but then for the charged attack you have this awesome fixed beam where the mirrors stay in place, just firing a fixed beam for a set amount of time. They really are effective and well to use. He also has this blade attack where he fires all these swords sweeping the screen for his bomb attack. Next, we have the cute little ninja girl, Junis. Her familiar is this lemur, who fires this multi-way shuriken. The more power-ups you get, the more powerful the shuriken get, and you'll ultimately be firing in 4 different directions. For his charged attack, he becomes this set flamethrower, which deals massive damage to enemies and is really effective at taking out higher HP enemies, both bosses and sub-bosses, as well as some fixed emplacements, that sort of thing. Really great. And her attack, or rather her bomb attack, is similar to Jane's, where it's the flower dance. Though not necessarily the plane this time, she goes and is like dancing herself. Our last regular character is Katana, a robot who's fighting this battle. So his familiar are a bunch of magical spears that fire lasers very similar to your own lasers. But when you charge them up, they do have this short-range stab attack that deals massive damage, and if you can get in range and get it in there, it's really, really great for taking out mini-bosses and the bosses themselves. His bomb is a screen-hitting lightning attack, which deals alright damage. And then for our hidden character is our last returning character from Samurai Aces, Ajin, who goes and has a sword as his familiar that has this really neat wave attack that you can get. And his charge attack is just swinging that sword. It's nice because it charges up fast, but it is very short range, so you have to be really careful when using it. His bomb is definitely the strongest in the game, though, where he shouts out, "Samurai Sodo!" And like his Samurai Aces attack, he goes and sends after images of himself. But it's powerful enough that it can go and take out most bosses in one, maybe a little bit more past that. So those are our characters from Tengai, and we'll be taking Katana for our run today. So like other Psikyo titles, Tengai has a randomized stage set for your first 3 stages. There are 4 possible stages it could be, and it'll just depend on what luck of the draw you get. Though there are, like the hidden character, there are other couple codes in the game which happen to be listed under the game's digital manual, which is really, really nice, and a really nice touch by Zerodiv. So you do have a stage select, so you can select which stage you want to start on of the 4 beginning stages. Then after that we'll have 2 fixed stages, and then there's a branching path where you can choose which of the 2 routes you want to go, and depending on those routes that you pick, that will determine your ending. Yeah, that's one thing that I really, really like about this game, is it has multiple routes you can take towards the end, and multiple endings, including some bad endings if you don't defeat the boss in time. A really, really nice touch. So, as we make the way through the stage, one thing that also has changed from Psikyo's previous titles is instead of having level 4 attack and having our attacks degrade, the way that this game works, if you come into physical contact with an enemy, you'll power down. So, in theory, if you weren't getting hit by bullets are what kill you. So if you're not getting hit by bullets, even if you had no power-ups, you could indefinitely keep on bumping up against the enemy, and you won't die. So, kind of interesting, but like frustrating at the same time, because you don't have your awesome charge attacks if you don't have any power-ups. So it's a system that can be quite frustrating to work with. And that basically is Tengai, or Sengoku Blade. So it was the second title released in the series, with the third title coming almost a solid decade later, available only on the PSP. So we're going to go and move a little bit outside of the bounds of a normal review and start talking a little bit about Zerodiv and in general the Switch, which is fast becoming this incredible platform for shoot 'em ups. I've just been surprised at how much love of the genre the Switch has shown so far. There are so many classics and even some newer titles that have seen release on the Nintendo Switch. So as far as Zerodiv is concerned, I really hope they keep up the work that they've been doing and release the remainder of the Psikyo library on the Switch. Heck, I'd even love it if they were to release the sequel to Sengoku Blade or Tengai, Sengoku Canon, on the Switch, as obtaining a PSP copy and getting decent PSP footage isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world. Another thing to note is the game, this one especially, since it has a horizontal aspect, or horizontal scroller, and a larger aspect ratio, it really looks and plays great on the Switch in handheld mode, as most of my practice up to this point was actually done in handheld mode. So if you're looking for a portable, modern day portable that has all your shoot 'em up needs, I can't recommend the Switch enough at this point. And it's definitely not anything I saw coming. So I'm really, really happy to see it having developed that way. So this is basically Tengai in a nutshell. So let's talk a little bit about the plus and minus flavors that the game has. So as far as minus flavors are concerned, especially coming from a lot of vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups that like have teeny hitboxes, it's hard to tell where your hitboxes are in this title. It's unlike some other shoot 'em ups, it does not highlight that for you. So I've gotten killed several times in practice trying to even figure out what I can skim, what I can't. So that's something that's a little bit of a frustration. The game itself is also relatively short. A tin robot? Not worth fighting. Go home. That said, there are a lot of plus flavors here. One of the things that I enjoy the most are the characters. So you've got like all these different characters, and just those little snippets you get at the ends of the stages really help go and define like a little bit of who they are. So in this case, we're just a robot that's like doesn't speak much of the way of words, which is fine. Even these mid-boss ninjas that we've been fighting, we get a little bit of word as well. So these are the kind of situations where Katana can be hard to use. Getting in and dealing damage with his spear attack can be tricky. Power up, power up. Another thing, the fact that the game has multiple endings for every character, I think is just wonderful. I love that kind of little attention to detail. It's the kind of thing that brings me back time and time again for shoot 'em ups, and also the fun like steampunky samurai setting that the Sengoku series takes place in is one of the reasons I really like playing the series. And also this one, I mean, it's 3 years after the original Sengoku Aces, or Samurai Aces, but I feel like the sprite work is just like superb in this title. Well, anyway, there we have it. Tengai served up for your enjoyment. As far as flavors are concerned, I feel like this one is just a very satisfying snack that comes in all these different flavors, kind of like an onigiri. It'll fill you up in short bursts and leave you coming back all the time, but it's not one of those meals that you're going to go and sit down and fill up on a regular basis. Alright, there we have it. That's Shoot 'em Up Saturday for this week. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.